right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, August 11th, 2025. I now call the meeting to order. It's time for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will be led this evening by Commissioner Martinez. So,
please rise and say with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anna, will you please do the voice roll call?
Chair Harlan.
Here.
Vice Chair Zick.
Here.
Commissioner Rojas.
Here.
Commissioner Klepak.
Here.
Commissioner Andrade.
Here.
Commissioner Dixon.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
All right, we have no announcements or presentations this evening, which takes us to public comments. Public comments will be heard at this time on items that are not listed on the agenda but are within our jurisdiction. I'll open public comment. If you'd like to speak, please come to either podium, or if you're participating by Zoom, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of the screen. Or if you're joining by phone and would like to speak, please press star 9. Does anybody in chambers like to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none. Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or phone?
Alfonso, you may provide your public comment.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. So, my name is Alfonso. I'm representing the owner of 300 23rd Street, who are out of the country.
I'm sorry, I think we're having a little difficulty hearing you. Can anybody hear him okay?
Barely.
Barely. If you could, yeah, maybe speak directly into your phone or microphone.
Okay.
He mentioned this.
Let's say it again.
Yeah, that's what I
I'm
thought.
representing the owner of 300 23rd Street.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt you, Alfonso. If you're talking about an item that we have on tonight's agenda, you'll be able to speak when we get to that item.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
My apologies.
Thank you. We'll come back to you later. And anyone else?
No, there's not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. I will close public comments, and that takes us to Planning Commissioner's comments and suggestions. Let's start with Commissioner Rojas.
I have none, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Klepak?
None for me.
Okay. Commissioner Andrade? Oh, okay. Commissioner Dixon?
Just a very brief recap on we were at the Neighborhoods Where We Belong, the public thing that happened. Why am I not able to talk? The rezoning and neighborhood thing that was had at the senior center. And I just had a little comment to staff about that, was that if it's possible at all in the future, some of those events, to incorporate more of a town hall sort of element. I came a little bit late, so I may have missed that initial part where the staff was talking to the crowd, but maybe if there was a little bit more of a town hall element to that, where there's some, opportunities for questions from the general crowd, I think that might be helpful. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out affair, but there were some comments there at the meeting about some of the folks I was talking to had expressed that they would have enjoyed something like that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. I will start off with the Neighborhoods Where We All Belong initiative. The rezoning initiative, I also attended that meeting at the Norma Herzog Community Center. It was a nice event. I enjoyed it. There were council members. There were a few of us that are on the dais there. And I want to hope that at following meetings, we get a nice, big, diverse group of people to attend all the other meetings that are planned, including August 21st at 6 p.m. at City Hall. That will be regarding Harbor Boulevard and Newport Boulevard specifically. And on August 23rd at 10 a.m. at the Senior Center, there will be a West Side walking tour lumped in with this initiative as well. Additionally, some other community events that are going on On Thursday, August 14th at 6 p.m. at City Hall, there will be a fair housing workshop. This is so that you can learn about rights and responsibilities as tenants and landlords. Please do attend if you want to learn about that. Again, that's 6 p.m. on Thursday here at City Hall. On August 16th from 11 to 2 at the Mesa Verde Library, there you can join Poet Laureate Danielle Hansen for a workshop on how to write a poem. How wonderful. That's August 16th from 11 to 2 at the Mesa Verde Library. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Zick?
Thank you. Just two items. And they're a repeat of previous items. I just want to reiterate to staff my interest in seeing in our regular packages a list of all active planning applications and the associated property address. I know you've committed to providing that at such point as your staff resources allow you to compile that list or clean it up or whatever it is you intend to do. And then the second thing that I'm also waiting to receive is a list of the SB 9 projects and their associated addresses. Again, you've committed to provide that. I'm just highlighting my continued interest in receiving it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I too attended the housing rezoning workshop, and I would agree it was a nice event. I don't want to be overly critical, especially since it's the very beginning of the process, but I did hear from several people, and there were a lot of people who you expected to be there, and a few new faces. But the general response I got is this is just more of the same. And what are we actually doing here? Which I think was actually a fair point. And so I just wanted to share my observations and a few comments, which is that, you know, we need more context, I think, for the community about what are the outcomes here. And why we want people to weigh in and what they're actually going to get at the end of the day. I think there's some confusion, especially when we start with broad questions about what do you want in your neighborhood. It's a little too vague. And my concern really is that we run the risk of disengaging people who are actually showing up, or at worst, people becoming disillusioned. And I know that's not the intent of this. So my suggestion is that we give the public more direct information about what is going to be the outcome at the end of the day, namely changes to our zoning code, creating a revised land use map, amendments to our general plan, including the housing element. I mean, these are all the deliverables in the consultant's agreement, and these are, I think, for the layperson, very dry, very complicated, and highly technical. So my point is that I want to make sure that the public that's participating gets some value out of this and that we do engage people. And to that end, I would suggest, and I know the mayor has even mentioned this, going out to people to get their input. Go to Salty Bear, go to a park in the middle of the day. I mean, try and reach people in an unexpected and maybe informal setting. I think a town hall is a good idea as well. Maybe further down the road, but you know, we need to try and get more new voices here, and it's not going to be at the Norma Herzog Center every month, as much as I like visiting that. As well, just to give people I think we really just need to get clear expectations here. That's, I think, the final point for me. All right, with that, let's move on to the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar tonight. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted on in one motion. Unless anyone has pulled an item from tonight's discussion, we will vote on the balance. Nothing's pulled, Anna?
Nothing was pulled, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Martinez, second by Commissioner Dixon. Any comment?
No.
Okay, let's call for the question.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right, so that takes us to public hearings, and we have one public hearing tonight. Anna, will you please read the title for public hearing item number 1?
Public hearing item number 1, design review PA-23-14 and tentative parcel map 2023-117, request for a residential small lot subdivision to create 2 parcels, each containing a new 2-story detached single-family residence and an attached 2-car garage at 2308 Santa Ana Avenue. Please note we have received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, any ex parte communications? Commissioner Dixon?
No.
Okay, sorry. All right, I will.
I just wanted to report that I drove the area, checked out the location there. Didn't talk to anybody there, but I was visiting the site.
Okay. All right, I will turn it over to Ms. Curley for the presentation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Harlan. Yeah. Thank you, Chair Harlan. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Caitlin Curley, Assistant Planner, and today I am presenting an application for a 2-unit residential development located at 2308 Santa Ana Avenue. This application includes a design review for a small lot residential development consisting of 2 2-story single-family dwelling units. It also includes a tentative parcel map to subdivide the existing 9,450 square foot lot into 2 parcels with one of the residential units on each lot. The project includes site improvements, including new hardscaping and landscaping. As part of the project, the existing single-family residence will also be demolished. The project is located near the intersection of Santa Ana Avenue and 23rd Street on the southeast corner of that intersection, northeast, pardon me. The property is surrounded at the northeast and south by R2MD lots, that's multifamily medium density lots, and the lot itself is zoned in that way. Across the street are single-family residentially zoned properties. The existing conditions at the site include a single-family home and a non-conforming garage, along with hardscape and landscape improvements. The tentative parcel map, number 2023-117, will subdivide the property into 2 lots. The first new lot will be somewhat rectangular in shape, abutting Santa Ana Avenue, shown in blue here. The second lot is a flag lot located mainly at the rear of the property, but with a 10-foot driveway extending to Santa Ana Avenue. The project complies with all development standards, shown here. The municipal code requires 4 spaces for a project like this. 4 garage spaces, 2 for each unit, and 4 open spaces, again, 2 for each unit. The project complies with this requirement with the garage spaces shown here in blue, and the yellow spaces are open spaces. The first floor plans of parcel 1 include 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and the first floor of parcel 2 includes 1 bedroom and 1.5 bathrooms. The second floor of parcel 1 includes 4 bedrooms with an optional bedroom 5 or loft and 3 full bathrooms. The total livable square footage of parcel 1 is 2,623 square feet with a 430 square foot attached garage. Parcel 2 is also 4 bedrooms with an optional bedroom 5 or loft and 3 full bathrooms. The structure is a total of 3,031 square feet of livable space with a 427 square foot attached two-car garage. These are the elevations for the project. The project includes varied roof designs and articulation and setbacks of the building facades. Multiple variations in materials are also used, including composite shingle roofing, wood fascia, horizontal siding, white stucco, and brick veneer. Preliminary landscape plans were provided as part of this application, and the proposed plants exceed the minimum required per code. Condition of Approval 14 also requires any driveways and parking areas to be finished with decorative stamped concrete or pervious pavers. This project meets the tentative parcel map and design review findings shown here. I would like to take this opportunity to provide 2 clarifications to the documents provided to you. Page 1 of the staff report should read that staff recommends finding the project, not the presentation, exempt from CEQA. Additionally, Section C on page 9 of the resolution should state that the project is subject to a traffic impact fee. This is because the project proposes adding a unit to the property. There's 1 unit currently on the property and 2 units are proposed. This is correctly reflected in Condition of Approval 41, which provides more details on the traffic impact fee requirement for this project. In conclusion, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA per guidelines section 15315, minor divisions of land, and sections 15303, new construction or conversions of small structures, as well as Public Resources Code section 21080.66. And also to approve design review PA 2314 and tentative parcel map number 2023-117, subject to the conditions of approval. Thank you very much. Staff and the applicant are available for questions at this time.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Curley. Commissioners, any questions of staff? None. Okay, Commissioner Dixon.
I had a couple of questions related to the public comment received, and on one of them is the noticing, and I know we have noticing provisions in the code, but in the past, there would be the full materials available if online a little bit earlier, and I know that the staff is very, very busy with a whole bunch of stuff, but do you know how long it was prior to tonight that all the materials were posted online so that neighbors or residents could read and see the actual nature of the project?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. I did confirm that the staff report and plans and accompanying documents were posted on Thursday, the 7th of August.
Okay. And then I know that there are, with Tessa, we've been doing a lot of automating of things. In other cities where I work, there's an ongoing list of applications that the city has received. Sometimes the GIS will have a link to whatever applications have been received and whatever materials have been received. And I don't think we're quite there yet with Tessa. I haven't been able to find it. But that's something, again, this underscores the importance of having, application materials and project materials available as soon as possible on the city website, and hopefully associated with the GIS. For instance, we had folks from Laguna who are working with us. They have a very comprehensive GIS that is wonderful. And I know they're a much smaller city with fewer parcels, but I think that's something we should aspire to. And do you know if the privacy exhibit was available on August 7th?
Yes, Commissioner, it should have been included as the last page of the project plans.
Okay. And then there were also, I am not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination. There was a concern about how the finished grade was calculated and the building height. If you could address that?
Thank you, Commissioner. The building heights shown are measured from finished grade, which is how the city measures maximum height limits here. This will be further verified and documented during the building permit plan check process, where additional details will be required.
And,
The,
oh, go ahead.
oh, pardon me.
No, please, finish.
I just wanted to clarify that the proposed building height from finished grade is 26 feet 5 inches for Unit 1 and 26.5 feet for Unit 2.
Great, thank you. And then the other concern was about the property line. And I know that's typically something that the project architects and applicants get involved in, and it's not necessarily something the city goes out and independently verifies, but I just wanted to see if you had any comments on that. It's in the public comment that was received today at 5:06 a.m. from Mr. Buitrago Jimenez.
Thank you, Commissioner. The survey was prepared for this project by a licensed civil engineer, and it is standard practice this is standard practice for new two-story development. The survey will, of course, be verified further upon building permit review.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez?
Thank you. First, just a quick one. Condition of approval 40 requires sprinklers in the homes. I didn't realize that sprinklers were required in single-family homes. When was that instated?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. That is a requirement from the California Building Code, and I believe that specific requirement was implemented in 2011.
Okay. And then just a general broad question, since I believe Commissioner Dixon addressed all the public comment questions. The applicant, at least the letter, was submitted in July of 2023. So we're more than 2 years since the applicant letter was submitted. Can you walk me through the timeline of this application? What caused it to take 2 years?
During the review process, the project was reviewed for code compliance, and modifications to the design were implemented to comply with code.
And that process of giving comments and then going back to the applicant and the applicant resubmitting a design, that 2 years?
It did take 2 years for this particular project, yes, Commissioner.
Do we know how many times it had to be resubmitted?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Fair enough. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Zick?
Thank you. First of all, I'd echo the sentiments from Commissioner Dixon regarding the production of application details to the public. 3 days, 2 days of notification, I think cuts it really close. And it certainly did in this case for one of the residents. On page 3 of the staff report, I did not understand this comment that in the last paragraph says, the residence has been owner occupied for more than 5 years and is therefore not a protected unit. What does that mean?
Hello, Commissioner. My name is Amber Gregg. I'm a contract planner here with the city. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you, and for those that I have not, it's wonderful to meet you. So in regard to that specific question, I'm sorry, could you repeat it again one more time, just so I make sure I get the...
On the bottom of staff report, page 3, there's a second to last sentence. And if you have the staff report in front of you, my question is, what does that sentence mean?
So it's talking in terms of protected units as far as if it is an affordable housing unit, meaning if it falls within a specific, if it were for rent, a specific amount being collected on rent. So it's something that we have to look at when we're eliminating units to see if we need to replace them or not. In this case, that provision is not applicable.
Is protected unit is that a euphemism, or is that a specific legal, a phrase with legal meaning?
I'm going to defer to the director.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Zick. With the passage of Senate Bill 330 with the Housing Accountability Act, the demolition of any unit has to be verified to ensure that there hasn't been nobody, that the occupants have not been in a low-income category within the past 5 years. And in fact, the Housing Accountability Act requires that if that is the case, that the replacement unit then has to be restricted in a way that is in that income level. And so because this residence was owner-occupied for more than 5 years, it does not fall under the category of being protected under the Housing Accountability Act. That is a state law. I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it was passed in 2019, signed by the governor that September. Thank you.
Okay. I think a few more words there might have made that a little clearer, protected from what. And similar to the question that Commissioner Martinez asked about sprinklers, and I was aware of that code requirement. What I wasn't aware of, and it's in condition of approval number 23, that this project shall have a solar system installed prior to final building inspection. Can you tell me what the authority is for that requirement?
Thank you for your question, Vice Chair. This is a requirement from the California Building Code as well, specifically CalGreen, to maintain energy efficiency standards.
California Building Code.
Yes, Vice Chair.
And is the California Building Code applicable to construction projects in the city?
Yes.
Why is this provision of the California Building Code repeated here as a condition of approval, if it's already in a authoritative document that is applicable to the project?
This particular condition of approval, as you said, it applies to the project and every project, but here it provides clarity and makes it further required per the entitlement.
We're not implying by repeating it here that this is more important than the provisions of the California Building Code that were not duplicative in including.
No, Vice Chair, we're clarifying that it does apply.
Vice Chair, if I can jump in.
Please.
Certainly, it would be extraordinarily cumbersome to repeat every provision of the California Building Code under the conditions of approval.
Oh, yeah.
But because many of the applicants, as well as staff for planning purposes for the project, some of the major elements, if they're identified as part of the conditions of approval and the conditions are used essentially as a checklist, it makes it easier for planning purposes to foresee some of the major items coming down the pipeline so that they can be included in the plans up front. And by upfront, that means, you know, this entitlement process that we have, but as well as during the preparation of the building plans as well, so that some of the major items don't come up in perhaps the second or third round of plan review. And hopefully it's our effort that makes it easier for those plans to be prepared and them to be that much closer to being approved. So hopefully that helps.
I understand your rationale. Thank you, Chair.
All right, any other questions? I actually want to piggyback on that one. I'm curious, and I can see the value somewhat in having something specific like that, but does the applicant's architect, designer, and/or staff notify the applicant of that requirement up front?
It is they are notified in the conditions of approval, which they receive prior to the hearing. Also, most architects and engineers who work on these projects are also familiar with the building code. So
Okay, I may save the follow-up for the applicant. And one other sort of odd question to come out of this is, I noticed that there are, on the landscape palette, there's a proposal for 11 windmill palms. And I know the council has a certain disdain for the palm tree. But it seems like a requirement is to have twice as many palm trees to count for one regular tree. Is that right?
that is correct, Chair.
Okay. All right, those are all my questions at the moment. Commissioner Dixon?
To follow up on the solar question, the wording of that 23 gives me a little bit of pause, just because all new residential construction shall have solar system install prior to final building inspection. To me, that says panels, everything, not being wired for solar if they want to install solar. Would you please clarify that?
You are correct, Commissioner. The solar system must be actually installed, not just wired for future installation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? All right, I will open up the public hearing and ask whether the applicant or the applicant's representative is present. Okay, please come to the podium if you'd like. And I'll turn on your mic, and if you could just tell us your name for the record and if you've read the conditions of approval and agree to them.
My name is Ali Sedji, and I have read them and I agree to them.
Okay, the floor is yours if you want to say anything.
All right, thank you, Planning Commissioners, for reviewing our project at 2308 Santa Ana Avenue. I believe this project will be a tremendous improvement to the city of Costa Mesa and its community. When I purchased the property, which was about 3 years ago, the property was left in absolute despair, which is pretty evident, though we've cleaned up a little bit of the front, and it required significant deferred maintenance. Having lived in Eastside Costa Mesa for many years in the past, I'm aware of the architectural diversity, people, character, and believe this project will harmoniously blend into its environment. The designs of the home were created by a leading architect, the Mark Gross and Associates, who's done several projects on the east side, and you can drive by them. They're beautiful projects. This is why I specifically chose them as the architect. They're very familiar with this kind of layout, which is a small lot subdivision, and I really appreciate what they've done. Each home is custom designed in a coastal modern style. It combines elements of coastal and contemporary aesthetics to create a fresh and relaxed atmosphere. It draws inspiration from beach houses, coastal landscapes, natural materials, incorporates clean lines, some minimalistic, contemporary designs. The interiors are well apportioned for growing families, which we know, like myself, have need for nice apportioned homes, and it's appropriate for its surroundings, and very appropriate relative to other new construction on the east side. We applied for no variances, absolutely none. We complied with every standard, and we over-complied on several, and some of the ones that are more important, like open space, we absolutely over-complied. The lot is generous in size. That's specifically the reason I purchased it, because it doesn't cram homes into small lots. It's a very well-sized lot. We spent a lot of time, and I really appreciate the staff. I know they're very busy. It takes a long time to get a project through the staff. We spent a lot of time on many aspects. The plans are very complete. The landscape designs are detailed. The grading plans are detailed. The architectural plans are very detailed for planning purposes. We spent a lot of time looking at window placements. We spent time looking at layouts. I take it seriously, and we spent time, we made modifications for privacy. You can see those modifications. I can't say that I that I particularly thought they make the home better, but we made those compromises and we made those trade-offs, including raising windows and making some windows smaller. And the layout of the homes, they follow the same layout as today, which the driveway is on the north side, and we left it in the same location it's been for 50-plus years on that property. I really appreciate you guys taking a look at it, and I hope you're excited about it as I am to get it moving along. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Seji. Any questions of the applicant? Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. I've got a couple. And my first question is just a follow-up to the question that Commissioner Martinez asked relative to the timetable of the past 2 years of the application. What I'm mainly interested in about that, because it caught my attention as well, is how much of that time was being paced by you and your team's activities, and how much of that time was you waiting for city processes?
In fairness, it's a combination of both, but it's a natural, one leads the other, meaning that the level of detail that was required, as you can tell in our plans, is a very thorough package. I would say caught my team by surprise that level of detail is required. That level of detail takes time for the engineers and the architects to work through and come back, and when there's comments, come back. I believe it took 5 reviews, and at the 5th review, I was very specific with the staff that we really need to know everything and wrap it up, because we're coming on 2 years, and I thought it was excessive, because carrying this property, as you can see, it's not rented. This property is sitting there vacant. It was a significant amount of time.
Okay, I guess I recognize that. I also had a question for you about the solar system. I note on your plans on the front page, you simply indicate that you will have a solar system installed prior to final building inspection. What capacity solar system are you intending to install?
It's a great question. I don't know the technical of the capacity, because I believe it gets calculated during the building plan check process, not during planning. So once it moves from planning to building, where the engineers work on the calcs, they determine the size and load of the solar panels. I believe that's the case. I am also not an engineer, but I believe that would be the case.
And your engineer is not here?
My engineer is not here. But I believe it would meet the requirements set forth in the standards for the solar panel based on the size of the home and the Title 24 requirements.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Andrade.
Hi. I had a quick question. So one of the public comments that we received raised concerns about drainage and sewer, that the property has history of flooding, sewer overflowing during rainstorms. Have you experienced that or evaluated that in the time that you've possessed the property, and how have you been able to mitigate that?
I have not experienced it.
Okay.
But I can tell you that from the new construction, the property will get regraded, and the property will have a proper drainage design, as it's already stipulated in the grading plans, that will drain the property per the code requirements.
Okay, and obviously collaborating with city staff and engineers to making sure that, none of those issues about drainage, flooding happen, I imagine, right? We'll be working in parallel.
Absolutely. We spent a good amount of time with staff.
Great.
Making sure that the property drains properly.
Yeah. Fantastic. How about, and also I want to just kind of bring to their concerns about privacy. Can you I know that there was some of the plants that we're talking about, but anything that you can share about the privacy concerns that the neighbors are bringing forward?
So I understand their concern. We spent a lot of time on window placement, directing most of our windows towards the front of the property. But as you can imagine, you have to have windows on rooms. And we try to minimize the impact of windows to the adjoining properties, all the adjoining properties. And we made the best effort to minimize any direct line of sights and impact into homes. And we made compromises and we made trade-offs on those plans in order to do that. So we did take that into consideration, and we absolutely addressed it
Yeah.
with staff.
Great, yeah, I see some of that in the plans, right, on how these windows are 5 to 4 high sills. Well, anyways, interesting, kind of odd-looking shaped windows. So I appreciate the efforts that you took to be mindful of that.
Thank you.
Our-
I'm glad
our
you
neighbors'
noticed.
concerns. Yeah.
Because I prefer not to have those odd-shaped windows at 5-foot sill. But again, we made that compromise in order to minimize the privacy impact. Some windows are required for egress purposes.
Right.
And we had to put them in. And we moved some windows way up from the top sill. So we absolutely took that into consideration.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Zick.
A follow-up question. During the 2 years that you were working on this project, if another property owner in the neighborhood, maybe an immediately adjacent property owner, was aware that you were working on this, if they had contacted you and asked to see a preliminary set of plans, would you have had any difficulty or reservation providing that?
Not necessarily, but what I have to take into consideration is they're preliminary, and plans change.
Of course.
Yeah, and so you want to make sure that ultimately the plan that you end up with is a plan that your neighbors see, so they know what you're building. Because you don't want to take everyone through your process, because the process has a lot of iterations to it.
So are you saying yes or are you saying no?
I don't know that. It's a hypothetical, but I have no problem sharing with the neighbors
Okay.
the idea, especially considering that it's a pretty standard construction, which required no variances.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I just have a couple, and I'll be honest, this isn't my normal line of questioning, but I do want to raise the issue about the palm trees. And I don't know if this is something that this is definitely what you want in here, but it has been a disfavored tree by some. And I noticed that for the most part, they are on the rear perimeter, so the eastern perimeter and on the south. It's not really going to provide a lot of privacy either for the owner or for the neighbor. So my question is that a tree you feel so strongly about that needs to be part of the landscape pattern, or is there another substitute that you'd be willing to consider?
So to answer your question directly, we would be considered another substitute. The issue was that, if you can see, there's a significant number of tree requirements on this property because there are a lot of trees on the property that we have to replace. That burden of number of trees, we proposed several different types, but there's different types of trees require different, I would say, room to plant. And because we're putting retaining walls, you're going to end up taking a lot of the footing of that retaining wall. It takes a lot of space on the lot. So you can't get trees so closely, trees that have large roots, you can't get them so closely next to walls when you have retaining walls. So we try to balance the type of tree, and there's different types besides palms, and in order to make the number of tree requirements work.
Right. So my understanding, though, is that you basically have to put twice as many palms to meet the requirements. So if you could do half as many, that seems to make it an easier calculation. I may be wrong about that. But the other one I noticed is that in the front facing Santa Ana, you have some magnolia trees there. And those grow quite large, especially in the east side, up to 25, 30 feet tall and probably 10 to 20 feet wide. They look a little cramped in that entryway. So I just wanted to sort of flag that for your consideration. It's always nice to put together something on what looks like on a plan, but in practice, when you have to account for growth, and in the east side, we do have some very mature trees, you'll see what the overall impact might be.
On the magnolia, I completely understand. It's specified, because I spoke to the landscape architect. These, I believe, are little gems, which are dwarf magnolias.
Okay.
They do not grow to that size that you're referring to. They're much smaller and compact.
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. I'll give you an opportunity to come and speak again if you want to respond to any public comment at the end.
No, I really appreciate you guys taking a look at the project. I think this project would be a great addition to that part of Santa Ana Avenue. It'll bring home ownership to the city. It's designed well, and I think it fits really well with the community. So thank you, and have a good night.
All right, thank you. I will now open the public comments. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come to either podium. And if you're joining us on Zoom or by phone, use the raise hand option or star 9 on the phone. All right, good evening, sir. You have the floor.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Santa Bob, and I live within, well, it was a little younger, a stone's throw away from this property. I have no objections to this property. I think it's a good plan, and other than I have a little disdain for the palm trees. Other than that, I would just support this project. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Santa Bob. Anybody else in chambers like to speak? All right, welcome.
Hello, welcome. My name is Dave Prosek. I've been emailing with Ollie. Nice to meet you face to face. The emails have been cordial. There's no arguing. But I will bring up a few things. I am one of the neighbors that would be on the back property. I'm at 308 23rd Street today. A couple things. So on the timing for review, which has been brought up by a number of members here, as stated, it was posted on Thursday. Today is Monday. I got to work. My wife works. We got kids. I did not spend my whole weekend reviewing documents. I did print out over 100 pages today to go through and review and look at my phone during work. So while there's a lot of information, they spent 2+ years working out, almost 3, and gave us 3 days. Within it, there is a lot of activity of referring to different tests, and we looked at the irrigation, the drainage, the privacy. They're referenced. We've never seen them, right? So how do we, if we've got architects or consultants, I know someone will speak for the other neighbor. He does development as well. He wants to run them through his consultant. So while we see the privacy exhibit here in the line of sight, my property has 9 different ways of looking at it from the windows. 3 of them look directly into our bedrooms. So I understand there's been a change in the height of them. I'm not a tall guy, I'm 5'9". If it's 5'4", I can still look right over the window and see whatever I want to see. So if it's a thing about natural light, put it at 6 foot, make it really long, or add skylights. But privacy is the #1 concern. And if these things are to be 5 feet from the property line, and it's the second story, and those are the bedrooms, they're looking straight down, right? Not good for us. The landscaping, there's areas along the fence line where there's no trees. So we talk privacy, there's all gravel. I don't know if that's where the HVAC units are going. That'll be loud, but there's no trees there. I know I've got less than a minute. It references lighting for where the parkings are. I don't think that's going to impact us as much, but if there's light on the property throughout the night, I don't know how that works. The drainage, there are problems. Our backyard will flood if it's really wet and damp. And if they're going to raise the elevation at all, and there's like a 5% incline, and there's only whatever the specifics are, it could drain into our issues and the neighbors. So I know that studies would like to be seen to validate that there aren't going to be any drainage issues. You mentioned about privacy. We took a lot of studies. What were the changes that were truly made? Can we see them? What were the original plans? And as far as the property being in despair, you know, the original owners, Tim and Laura, they took good property care of it. It wasn't in this state, but it has in 3 years.
All right.
gotten grossly over.
That's your time. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Anybody else in chambers?
In front of High Council, my name is Blake Garner, Costa Mesa East Side resident, 58 years. To answer what the gentleman said, the place wasn't in disarray. I live 1 block away. So for the gentleman to get it and to have it sit for 2 years with no weed control, nothing, you know, I have to destroy the statement of, I'm anxious to move along. Well, what have you been doing for 2 years? The place was absolutely overrun when it was ready, when he bought it and presentable. Zillow will reinforce that. It offers potential solutions to housing shortages, but the concern and quality of life for long-term existing residents. I took the pleasure of meeting 2 of the residents right behind it, and a gentleman had been there since '92. He couldn't be here tonight. He's an engineer. Another lady. And I'm concerned about the quality of life. The Costa Mesa is charming, and I understand why people want to build here. But what makes it charming is the single level. I understand the medium density, but the traffic impact is a concern for me. With X amount of garages, that would be 8 cars. The stress on public services, anyone knows there could be proposed spending freezes. The gentleman mentioned his design is appropriate to construction. Don't we love Costa Mesa for the charmingness? You know, to put 2 units there is amazing, 26, 27 feet high. On the corner of Santa Ana and 23rd Street. Would that be something that you would enjoy living next to? And do you live next to something like that now? Medium density? Well, we're kind of seeing what medium density is doing right now. Shalimar and Pomona. I mean, let's think about that. And then the gentleman said, he believes that it'll meet the solar requirement. It's one thing to believe, it's another thing to know. And then lastly, if I may mention, the house lot is 9,450 square feet. I was under the belief the minimum requirement.
All right. Thank you. All right, if there's nobody left in chain, one more. All right, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kelly at 308 23rd Street, directly behind. I'm going to talk about a few things which are mainly the privacy concerns. I do agree on the palm trees, that is a concern. It doesn't provide a lot of privacy. There's a lot of kids who live in the neighborhood, especially us, we're impacted with 2 kids. Also, the balls from the palm trees that fall down, the concern is that they're going to fall down into our backyard and not be picked up, and we have dogs back there, and those are poisonous to dogs. So that is a concern for us. It's a big concern because we've been asking for 2 years what's been going on with this property, and we've directly asked Ollie, and he has not responded to it one time. As far as the overgrowth in the backyard, it has affected our backyard. We spent thousands of dollars putting in drains, and all the bamboo has destroyed that in our backyard, and he has not fixed it, now we have to pay thousands of dollars to take out his bamboo. So that's a concern. As far as the solar panels, where are they going to be placed on the roof? Are they going to be pointed towards us too? Like with the air conditioning, no privacy, a big wall? I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't able to be looked at and answered because we didn't get a lot of time to review anything. So all of these are a concern for us, and I hope he understands that.
All right, thank you. Okay, Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or phone?
Alfonso Jimenez, you may provide your public comment.
Yeah, hi. So I'm representing the owner of 323rd Street, who is out of the country. His name is Mike Tchaikovsky and Gene Tchaikovsky. So, can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, the owner stated his concerns and objections via 2 emails sent to planning commissions and to planning commission, and you guys already talked about that. The owner was given about half day to review and understand the project write-up and drawing that took at least a year, but we know it took like 2 years to develop. So we think this is unreasonable and not fair. Also, we are asking for a continuance of the hearing to give time for the project to be reviewed, consulted, and responded to. So just to finish, the main concerns are the general layout closeness to 323rd Street, backyard, rather than northern property side yard, which is the multi-family property. The proposed side yard windows overlooking the private backyard of this owner. The windows should be eliminated as the rooms already have enough front and rear yard windows. Also, there is a history of this property, stormwater flooding and the sewer overflowing, which was already mentioned. And that's all for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else, Hannah?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm going to close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Mr. Seiji, do you want to come back up if you want to respond to any questions?
I just want to quickly respond to my neighbors, Dave and his family. I did give Dave many updates by email. Unfortunately, because of the time that it took, he wanted to know a date, and I didn't know a date that we would be here today. And so I gave him updates by email as much as I knew that it was being worked with the city. In regards to the palm trees, it's very difficult to plant trees along side yards when you need access to utilities, and because of the footing of a retaining wall, that makes it difficult, and because of sun exposure, to plant trees along side yards. It's why the trees by the landscape architect were designed in a way that they are on the property. And in regards to the solar panels will meet the requirements that the state is asking for, and they'll be located per the engineer's guidance on, I believe, on the direction of the sun rises and sets. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, commissioners, any final questions? Vice Chair Zick.
I've got a question about the site drainage. I'm not sure if this is a question for planning staff or for Public Works. The question is, first of all, have you reviewed the drainage plan for this project? That's my first question.
Yes, Vice Chair, the Public Works Department has reviewed the drainage plan.
Is that Mr. Yang?
Yes, so our staff has looked at the drainage plan and the grading plan that went with it as well, in conjunction with the planning staff with respect to that.
Is the drainage plan a sheet flow, or is the water collected and piped out to Santa Ana Avenue?
I don't know the exact details of the plan itself, but in most cases, most grading plans are dealt with sheet flow. But for larger projects, it's usually we have drainage facilities and infrastructure within the property.
But you don't know the details of this particular project's plan?
No, because I wasn't the individual who actually reviewed it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Commissioner Dixon.
And just to follow up on the drainage question, I am looking at at sheet C2, which is the topo and demolition plan, legend and details. It's got some of the precise grading plan, which is C1. What's that?
Sorry, Commissioner Dixon. The drainage details are on sheet C3, and if you consult sheet C3, pardon me, you will see there are little shaded gray arrows that start at the back of the site, and then you'll see they go on the outer perimeter of parcel 2, and then let me see where they run along the north property line to the north of parcel 1, and parcel 2 drains out on the north side of the lot, and then parcel 1, you can see drains around the house, and then it kind of comes across the front of the house down the driveway. No, sorry, down the side yard where the planter areas are. And what I can't tell on this plan immediately, I haven't taken the time to study it, is whether the relationship between the drainage and the planter areas where those little gem magnolias are. But that's where the drainage ends up for parcel 1. So they drain in 2 different places, but you can follow it on sheet C3.
So on C3, if we're looking at the parcel 2, and it says on-site construction notes, and there's a number 11, which says construct concrete curb and gutter along that, it looks to be along that property line. There's also number 9, which is retaining wall and fence on top per landscaping plans. So I guess my question is, and I know that there's pretty well-established California law about nuisance flows and damage and all that good stuff, and I'm assuming that whoever the engineer who did go over this for Public Works was able to satisfy himself that there would not be flow onto an adjacent property. And I just wanted to see if anybody has any idea if there's a curb and gutter, there's a block wall on the perimeter as well, but is that going to be impervious? Is there going to be, it's not going to have slots underneath the block wall. And so looking specifically at the border of the parcel 2 to where 308 23rd Street would be. And just personally, we're doing a remodel and we had to go through quite a bit of this drainage stuff as well, and we had to do some resubmittals. So I know they're looking at it, but I just want to see if we can confirm that.
Commissioner Dixon?
Yep.
Just with a quick survey of parcel 2, as you mentioned there, the wall and the retaining wall and the curb and gutter that you've alluded to is essentially to block the drainage or the flow or nuisance flow to the adjacent property. So it's to keep that flow within that parcel 2 and sheet flowed outwards. So that way, none of that nuisance flow goes, and that's typically an engineering style to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And then Commissioner Dixon, if you would follow to the utility plan on the following sheet, so C4. So I'm going to piggyback on what City Engineer Yang was saying. So the parcel 2 will sheet flow against the curb and gutter out, but then parcel 1 actually uses a perforated storm drain pipe. If you look at note number 53, you'll see the dotted line and the way it runs around the house. And then it'll carry the water across the front of the house into the southwest corner of the property.
Got it. And those pipes are the ones that are depicted on C1, I believe, or C2, where they show the bedding and the pipe and the SDR and PVC bedding detail, atrium grate, ground infiltration pipe detail. That's, looks like figure 2 or C2 upper left.
Correct. Those are the details, yes, for how the pipe will be constructed.
Okay. And then when these go through the city planning, is an arborist part of that, or is it just the plan check pursuant to if it's on the list of approved city trees, or if it's not on the list of bad trees? Is that the level of review, or do they go, because I can understand if the property line has a footing, it's difficult to establish a root structure, and palms have a relatively shallow root structure. But does a city arborist or planning have an opinion on trees that are suitable for areas with footing? Because I think that would apply to the other property line to the adjacent houses as far as screening trees, whether it could be, I don't know, ficus is appropriate, but something along screening trees or hedges. So what could you provide detail on that?
Thank you, Commissioner. We do not have the city arborist look at plant pallets on private property. However, the planners, the project planners, in this case myself, do often work with the landscape architect on the applicant's side to make sure that the landscape plan is as feasible as possible.
Okay. And then, all right. I think those are my comments for now, Mr. Chair. Are we going to have an opportunity to ask the applicant about the trees, or has that already been covered with the applicant?
That's been
Okay,
covered.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Martinez?
Yes, thank you. So just to read out a condition of approval and see if I understand this correctly. It's going to be number 32 on page 49. The subdivider's engineers shall furnish the engineering division a storm runoff study to the city of Costa Mesa showing existing and proposed facilities and the method of draining this area and tributary areas without exceeding the capacity of any street or drainage facility on-site or off-site. This study to be furnished with the first submittal of the final parcel map. Cross-lot drainage shall not occur. So I'm to understand that there will be a study that is not in here yet that the city will receive and the Public Works Department will review. That's correct?
That's correct, Commissioner Martinez. That particular study has a name. It's called the Water Quality Management Plan, WQMP.
Okay. It says cross-lot drainage shall not occur. So if for whatever reason the study ends up being wrong and cross-lot drainage does occur, what is the remedy for that, since it's in our conditions of approval that it shall not occur?
So our staff will note that to the applicant's engineer or architect and to make that reflection. And we tell them to revise the plans so as that situation does not occur.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Dixon.
I had a quick follow-up question regarding the privacy, since one of the residents asked if there was a history of sort of the revisions. And I'm curious, Ms. Curley, if you're familiar with the history of revisions to privacy. And I ask because I appreciate the 5-foot windowsill part, but the two other windows that are depicted as next to the bed on the renderings, I can get you the page if you need it. Let's see. There may not be a bed there, there may not be nightstands there, and they don't appear to be, and I know there's windows are required for egress, but I'm just curious the staff's thoughts on that particular aspect, because those seem to be the two main culprits for that neighbor.
Thank you, Commissioner. The residential development standards for the city limit second-story windows from having direct views into other two-story residences. The residences to the north and south are one-story structures. However, staff has also worked with the applicant to limit views into the usable side and rear yards of the property. Most windows on the project are raised 5 feet from finished floor. Some windows do not fall into this category, mainly for egress purposes. However, if the Planning Commission decided to, they could implement a condition of approval to require, of course, staying in compliance with the building code, require the windows on the north and south side that are adjacent to the residential properties be either glazed or raised 5 feet from finished floor, again, to the extent that can be complied with the building code.
Okay, and from my looking at the privacy exhibit, it appears that it's really only the ones to the, I guess there's no, is there a North Star on here? The ones to the right, toward the 308 23rd Street, it's those two. Right, to the right. And so of the parcel 2. It doesn't look to be, and I would assume that would be to the east, or regardless, whichever direction that is, as opposed to the ones at 2310 Santa Ana. There doesn't appear to be a privacy impact there. So it's just those two, from what I'm seeing. Is that your understanding, or would you agree?
Most of the windows that are not raised above 5 feet that connect to a bedroom, not some sort of common area, are on the south side of the property.
Okay. Excellent. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I will now close the public hearing. Any commissioners want to make a motion? Vice Chair Zick was reaching.
Oh. I move that we adopt a resolution to find that the project is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15315, Class 15, minor divisions of land, and Section 15303, Class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures. In addition, this project is statutorily exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21080.66, and approve parcel map number 2023-117 and design review PA 2314 based on findings of fact and subject to conditions of approval, and amend Section C of the resolution to remove the word not.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second by Vice Chair Zick. Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Martinez?
First, I'm going to speak generally, not about the application specifically, because I think our conversation at the beginning was about things like inclusion of specific conditions of approval, like the solar system or the sprinklers. I think it'd be good in the future for future applications if we had some of the standard conditions of approval right at the beginning, you know, the 2 years, the indemnify and hold harmless, you know, the standard ones right at the beginning. We know those are there. Any specific ones that are specific to an application, have those towards the end. That way we know, hey, this one is actually, like, it's not something that we've read at our 100 meetings before this. And maybe something like these two building code requirements, 23 and 40, say, comply with the building code. A, solar system. B, fire sprinklers. I don't know if, because I know you already have things in there for engineering and fire, but maybe something like that would clear up some of the confusion that we've had up here today for this. Regarding this application specifically, I'll comment on the trees. I also noticed 11 palm trees and was like, that's very interesting. That's very weird. Our tree requirements in our zoning code require that 50% of our trees be evergreen, which meant that they had to get to 11 evergreen trees, and they had to match that with 11 palm trees, which ended up satisfying the requirement of 15 trees, thanks to another requirement that palm trees are half of a tree, even though palm trees aren't trees, they're palms. But we'll get to that in our study session item. And just, this is another unit of housing, and we need more housing. And that's practically it. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Zick?
Thank you. I'll start where Commissioner Martinez ended. Yeah, we need housing. We need ownership housing. Just because it's housing doesn't mean we need it. Just because it's a housing project doesn't mean it's a good housing project. Ollie, I think you've got a good housing project. I'm simply pointing out that any old housing project doesn't get a green light from me just because it has HOUSING. This is in an R2 medium density zone. I feel for people with single family homes in the area. When higher density development occurs next to them or near them, it shouldn't come as a surprise. Sadly, we're seeing some of this kind of thing happen in R1 zones, and to me, that's a tragedy. But when it's an R2 medium density zone, it shouldn't come as a surprise. What's really disappointing to me, and I've talked about this in general for a long time, and that is the very short amount of time I can't speak for the other planning commissioners, the short amount of time I have to review applications, the details, the staff reports. I get it on Thursday, the meeting is Monday. I don't have those 4 days clear on my calendar every single time. I have family obligations, I might be traveling, I might have other commitments, but it's my responsibility to go through the application. 4 days, that's not a lot of time. But if I lived next to one of these applications, I'd want more time than that to look at it and understand how I might be affected. This project has been being worked on a fair amount of detail for 2 years. And we have an adjacent property owner who had 3 days to look at it and 3 minutes to talk about it. And that's not right. And we're letting down the residents of this community by doing that to them. This is one of the reasons why I've asked for a list of all active planning applications so that at least in the public realm, somebody could look and see an address near them of some application and at least have an opportunity to ask questions. What is this project? How might it affect me? It's not right to have 3 days and 3 minutes. I support the project. I think it's a good project. The fact that you're not asking for any variances, any deviations, I applaud that. We shouldn't be keeping the public in the dark. And if an applicant had been contacted by a property owner and was looking for details, I trust you were forthcoming with them. I would also trust that if the residents contacted the city and asked for this information, it would have been made available to them. I support the project. I have serious reservations about the process.
All right, commissioners, any other comments? Commissioner Dixon.
Thank you. I was on the verge of doing a substitute motion to bolster conditions of approval number 3. However, I still think, based on staff's comments, that, and if I'm wrong, I don't know if it's not appropriate time to ask questions at this point, but the condition of approval number 3 says second floor windows shall be designed and placed to minimize direct lines of sight into windows on adjacent neighboring properties and to minimize visibility into abutting residential side and rear yards. Every effort shall be made to maintain the privacy of abutting property owners. Prior to issuance of a building permit, applicant shall provide a window placement study demonstrating compliance with this condition. I note that we had that exhibit, and I appreciate that, and I would hope that during this process, based on the comments this evening and what this condition of approval reads on its face, that what staff had been discussing about perhaps glazing or something like that that would be part of this condition of approval, that I would not need to make a substitute motion. So I am going to support this project for that reason. We've addressed the drainage issues. We've addressed the trees. Apparently, they're going to be palm trees, and that's allowable by code. Vice Chair Zick is correct. This is an M2 HD. This is a medium density area, not an R1 area. And one of the very difficult things to deal with on any of these projects is impact of views and windows that you just can't. I live in an R1 neighborhood, and there's a neighbor who put up an extension on theirs that looks directly into our bathroom window. I'm not happy about it, but we accommodate for that. But I think this condition of approval number 3, if everybody's aware of it and cognizant of it, should hopefully address that concern. As far as the delay, I'm not going to get on a soapbox about that, but I'm personally going through a tremendous amount of delay as well, and there's process issues that are being addressed, and I hope continue to be addressed. As far as the making things available to the public, we can individually and separately talk to City Council about strategies for that, but if we need more staff, if we need more money to get these things on GIS and get these things online so that we have, everybody knows what's going on, and we have that list that Vice Chair Zick is requesting, which I'm adding my voice to, I think that'd be great. So for those, I think this is a great project, and I wanted to address those concerns in a more fulsome manner and my thoughts on those. But I will be supporting this project, and I hope that the applicant and the neighbors can come to a great resolution, and this is a good addition to the neighborhood. And that's those are my comments, and I will be supporting the motion.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Andrade?
Also be supporting this motion. The one thing I would maybe recommend that, hopefully for the property owner to consider, for the close to 25,000 Costa Mesa renters that are in this community that I'm sure would hope one day be homeowners one day. I hope there's some opportunities to explore in allowing first-time home buyer opportunities in these homes, especially considering that more and more people are looking to really set roots in this community and be able to create some generational wealth to remain in Costa Mesa and keep Costa Mesa as engaging, as quirky, and unique as it is. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to the maker of the motion. I don't know if I've got the votes for this, but it's even odd that I'm even bringing it up. But I do think that the palm tree choice is an unusual one. Even though it may be allowed by code, it's still a choice. And I'm hoping that there are some other alternatives. I think it's important to respect the privacy of the neighbors here and provide some kind of larger shade tree. And the fact that it's for the most part, seems to be in the back, should be less of an issue. I do note that it's an odd choice because it also requires twice as many trees as the code would require. And so if it's a concern about the number of trees or cost, I think even having fewer but larger trees might be a better option, at least as far as the neighborhood is concerned. So if we can add an amendment to provide a more suitable alternative than the 11 palm trees, that's what I'm proposing.
Question.
Yes.
Is this the windmill palm that you're referring to?
Yes.
Do you know the mature height?
10 to 25 feet.
Oh, thank you.
One quick question on that.
Sure.
Would you be amenable to some sort of screening requirement for that area along, right? Nothing, or?
Yes.
That's infeasible, or?
I mean, look, I understand the practical realities is it's hard to put a tree. We have Tristanium on our side yard. They're fine. My wife hates it because they drop leaf litter everywhere. But they do provide a little bit of privacy, especially in the second floor. We don't have a second floor, but for our neighbors, although they complain about that because the trees migrate over onto their side of the property. Nevertheless, I would be amenable to some kind of screening on the southern portion of the site.
As determined or feasible by the Development Services Director?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Martinez?
I would agree. Just specific language is looking at reducing the number of palms and increasing the number of other non-palms, essentially is what you're asking for with the looking into.
I would just say eliminate the palms and find some other suitable alternative.
Eliminate all of them.
Well, there's 11 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 6 are on the rear and 5 are on the rear side of the first of parcel number 1. I don't have as much of an issue with the ones on parcel number 1, but again, I don't think it provides much aesthetic value. Certainly doesn't provide privacy for the parcel 2, but my main concern is the ones that are adjacent to the neighboring lots.
So how about request staff to work with the applicant to replace as many palms as possible with other trees.
Specific to parcel 2.
Specific to parcel 2, and look into.
And add screening vegetation as determined, as the applicant and the staff can agree to the appropriate screening vegetation along parcel 2 along that property line with 308 23rd Street.
Second, are you open to that?
Yes.
Well,
sorry. That's your second.
I'm open to that, yes, and I'd like to add some comments.
Please.
Okay. So, I fully support that. What I'm not clear on is if and you don't have to answer this question. I don't know if this is coming up because you don't like palms, council doesn't like palms, or if it's because the neighbors have concerns about privacy and swapping out the palms would be the best way to deal with that. My feeling is that we find ourselves on the dais doing landscape architecture when it really wouldn't have been necessary had there been time for the applicant and adjacent property owners and staff to work through these issues. I support the motion. I think it's constructive. I think it has a good chance of yielding an improved plan. I just regret that we're here doing landscape architecture.
Can I just raise a question? I didn't get the impression that the applicant was so dedicated to palm trees. I think it was a result of the root systems and the integrity of the walls and the structure. So if they were to switch to something that's non-palm, is it going to damage the integrity of structures?
I mean, I agree with you, Vice Chair Zick. This is not how I like to address these kinds of concerns. However, I mean, in an ideal world, the applicant would hear our concerns, they work with the neighbors, they come up with suitable alternative. We have the opportunity as our conditions of approval to make sure that that happens. So I'm just trying to protect the interests of the neighbors while also trying to respect the fact that there are code requirements and the applicant is trying to meet them. I just think this choice here is not optimal.
I support it.
Okay. I don't know if I answered your question, Commissioner Klepak, but I mean, I recognize that, you know, the trying to find a suitable tree for root structure. Not all palms have short roots, by the way. Some are incredibly difficult to remove. But this is a question for the applicant to kind of figure out. All right, so Commissioner Martinez, do you accept the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Does the second?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay. Let's call for the question.
That motion carries 7-0.
Okay, that decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. We have no old business tonight. We have one new business item. Anna, will you please read that?
New business item number 1, study session regarding potential zoning code amendments. Please note we have received public comment on this item.
Okay, I will turn it over to Ms. Gregg for the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Just give me 1 second to bring up the PowerPoint. All right. Again, my name is Amber Gregg. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I have presented in front of City Council before, but I have not had the pleasure of presenting in front of the City Council, so it's an honor to be here with you and serving the Costa Mesa community for about the last year and a half now. So thank you very much for that opportunity. Tonight we'll be discussing potential zoning code amendments, and with that, we'll dive right in. So the first question is, why exactly do we do zoning code amendments? So there's a couple reasons for this. The first is to provide better customer service. Sometimes there's opportunity for streamlining our review process, as well as improving efficiency in our permit reviews. There's also support to update business types and uses. This has happened a lot more frequently since the pandemic, where we're seeing quite a creative bunch of uses coming out that we haven't seen in quite a long time. It's also to ensure consistency with state law. Our delegates up in Sacramento keep us very busy with new legislation that comes down every single year, and we do our best to stay on top of that and update our codes appropriately. We also look for ways to clarify language in our zoning code. Sometimes it can be very technical and hard to understand. So if we find a way to better clarify that, we like to update that as well. And then lastly, we do updates to align for current best planning practices, as well as procedures. So for our latest updates, you just had one at your last Planning Commission meeting on July 28th, where we reviewed a number of minor technical updates, and you have future ones coming here at the end of August as well. We recognize that there's probably an opportunity for a more broader zoning code update in the future, but for right now, staff has been compiling a list for the last 2 to 3 years that is made up of about 90 amendments at this point. And those focus on economic development, as well as creating a better and more business-friendly climate here within Costa Mesa, and improving transparency within the development review process. In addition, we've had commissioners submit amendment ideas while we've been discussing amendments as well. So how often are we doing these code amendments? Well, currently there's an expectation to do them annually, and it's great to look at our code every year to see, okay, what kind of improvements can we do? But with the amount that you're gonna see tonight, we anticipate there's gonna be about 2 to 3 updates per year, but of course that's how it depends on what our workload allows. Right now, we have a very heavy lift in advanced planning with FDC, as well as the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and our rezoning efforts as well for the housing element. So there's a big lift there. The list before you today, as I said, has about 90 proposed amendments on them. And although there's a number of things listed, there's something that's not listed. And it's not because it's not a priority, it's just that it's prioritized already elsewhere. And that has to do with our housing element updates for the city. So that's on its own workflow track. And so that's not something we'll be discussing as part of this effort. In the attachment that was provided along with the staff report, staff made every effort to identify not only the number and the category, and we'll go over that a little bit later, but also the complexity that goes into every single one of these amendments. So some amendments are easier than others. We'd call those minor amendments. Some take a little bit more time, moderate amendments. That's a little bit of extra research and analysis that goes into it. And then we have a substantial work level effort, and we call that a level 3. And something to keep in mind, or example of that is something that is cross-departmental, where we'd have to collaborate with different departments, as well as public outreach, and a significant amount of research and analysis that would go into those. So something to think about, that not all amendments are created equal. So we do have some goals and limitations as part of tonight's discussion with you. Our first goal is to review the entire potential list of zoning code amendments and prioritize them accordingly. The second is to really understand the complexity of various levels, right, from a minor, a moderate, to a substantial amendment. 3 would be to discuss the different categories and how we should really be prioritizing items. The old saying goes, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So it really helps staff to know which ones you would like us to tackle first. As far as limitations, planning commissioners can ask questions, discuss general concept, and provide input on priorities, but the thing that we have to stay away from is actual policy discussions. And the reason for that is because we would be violating Brown Act requirements if we get into policy discussion. So again, the purpose of this exercise is to prioritize. It doesn't mean those policy discussions aren't going to come. It just means that they're not tonight. They'll be at a later time, either at a study session or at a public hearing. Should any of the commissioners decide to either delete items or add items, we would ask that there be a consensus on that. Let me give you an example. If somebody would like to delete an item and somebody else is like, I don't know, it gives us an opportunity to do that research and analysis for you and bring it back. And then at that time you can say, actually, now that I have more information, no, I would like to delete this off the list, but better be more informed than take it off right away. So please keep that in mind. And then we want to recognize that this is a dynamic and evolving list. So we have things that come up all the time where we're like, oh, we should probably add that on the list, as you can tell by the length of this, of things that are opportunities to improve the zoning code. And again, just to reiterate, we really have to keep it to prioritizing. Policy discussions, we're probably going to raise our hand on that one in order just to keep us focused. Prioritizing is going to take long enough tonight, we anticipate. So for those in the audience and those joining us at home, it's good to kind of go over how this list is organized. So at the top here in blue, you're going to see how the core categories are broken up for the 90 items in this list. The first one is a number, and that just kind of helps keep us all on track. So if Chair Harlan says I'd like to discuss item number 30, we can all quickly get to item number 30. The second one is categories. These are arranged in alphabetical order. So an overall category might be parking. And so you can go to the P's of that to get to that quickly. And then we have our subject. That's a more detailed item. So maybe we say category is parking, but the subject is medical office. That would be the subject. That kind of helps us stay focused as well. And then finally, issues is a brief description of what it is that we see that needs to be updated with that specific amendment. And then lastly, level of complexity. So again, 1 is the least, or a less amount of complexity. 3 is the most amount of complexity. So unless there's any questions, we can dive right in.
Okay, well, thank you for that presentation. I'm going to jump in first and maybe help set the stage for this. And my question actually, first, I think the organization is a very good one. It helped me at least kind of frame the way I wanted to think about this. My question, though, for staff, and it's not just limited to you, Ms. Gregg, is which of these, and I'll keep it open-ended, which of these is most impactful for staff as far as processing applications? In other words, are there ones that just come up repeatedly and we just need to make a change to save staff time? And I suspect they're not the ones that are terminology related.
Sure, I can speak to that a bit. Thank you for that question, Chair Harlan. I would say the items that are in the use categories, the items that are in the standards category, and probably the definition category are the top 3 categories that arise from staff interactions with development review projects. That's how those come about. As a project will have a certain circumstance, and then as the project review progresses, it becomes unclear, for example, whether the project is subject to a specific standard, or whether a use is allowed, or whether it falls under a definition. And if it falls under a definition that doesn't exist, for example, then that creates some ambiguity as to how to apply the zoning ordinance. So then that ends up taking more time. So I would say those 3 categories are where most of the ones, if those were to go first, for example, that would save a lot of staff time on the day-to-day, and it would also streamline development review processes for the residents and business owners in the community.
Okay. And so for the most part, we as commissioners don't deal with applicants on a day-to-day basis like you do. So my second question, though, would be, what would be the most impactful as far as changes in development? And I'll be more specific. What is going to help incentivize or expedite development? Which of these code amendments, based on what we've seen in the last few years of applications?
I think it's hard to pinpoint the specific items because the breadth of requests that we get is so broad that, I don't think there's one. And that's why I think my first answer, the answer to your prior question, was in categories. Yeah, there really isn't one. I would say some of the ones that are most time-saving, the commission even took care of as part of the technical updates. So for example, the fences and walls one, that was a prime example. It affected every R1 property in the city. And that was, and that clarity would help, for example. But here, yeah, there's not, I wouldn't say there's 1 or 5 or 10. I really think that it's in the categories. If I were to look at the volume, the volume of customers we have are either going to be concentrated in the individual homeowner category, those that buy homes and they want to remodel and add, or they're going to be individual business owners looking to settle into a new business space. So those are the two, I would say, of our customer volume are the highest.
Okay, on my last question, and then I'll promise to open up. For applicants, let's say another category, applicants looking to develop projects, and in particular housing or mixed-use projects, which of these would be ranking high as far as what are they asking for most? Is it, I'm suspecting parking.
Not necessarily. Most of the multifamily, so let me preface my answer by saying most of what you're not going to find in this list is a lot of the housing policy items, because those are housing element programs that we are undertaking as part of Neighborhoods Where We All Belong, and there's a whole zoning update that we have to do to implement the housing element. So a lot of those you're not going to find here. Okay. But I will also say, just from staff experience, we're finding that for market rate housing, yes, there is going to be some requests to bring that below city parking requirements. But for most projects that are coming in with any component of low income, very low income, they're falling under the state parking maximum for that. And it's actually not been that much of a problem. And in fact, the applicants exceed the number that the state caps the city at requiring. So hopefully that answers the housing question.
That does. And those are my initial questions. So let me open it up to my colleagues. Vice Chair Zick go ahead.
Let's see. By way of example, if I look at number 6, subject is park, needs a definition. My question is this: if we come up with a definition, whatever that might be, does council have to approve that?
So any of our zoning code amendments is a recommendation by the Planning Commission, and codification does require city council approval.
Perfect, thank you. I was hoping you would say that. Second question, by way of example. Number 1, bedroom, need a definition. Do we seriously lack a definition of a bedroom in our codes? I'm not trying to be critical, but seriously, this is something we're lacking?
We are either lacking the definition for a bedroom, or there is a lack of a reference that directs us to the proper dictionary to use when we are lacking a definition.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the purpose or need to do these zoning code amendments, your staff report indicates that it's to deal with state law consistency. So I can see that maybe we need to amend the zoning code if we're out of compliance or inconsistent with state law. That makes sense. I would think those would be high priority, whether they're low level of work, medium level of work, or high level of work. We're out of compliance with the law, get to work and fix it, would be my thinking. Another reason why you would want to do this is to formalize zoning administrator determinations. And I imagine that's because those are found on various zone administrator project approvals, and so they're kind of scattered to the wind and not all in one place. So it'd be nice to formalize those determinations into the code. That kind of makes sense to me. And if those determinations have been made, then it would be fairly straightforward to incorporate those into the code without much discussion, I would think. And then you indicate clarifying language for ease of use. Okay, so if there's something in the code right now that is using complex language, convoluted language, incomplete language, and you want to clarify that, it would seem that would be fairly straightforward. Although he with the pen writes the rules, I don't expect that there would be an agenda there if you're really trying to clarify something that's not clear. And related to that, you indicate on page 83 or page 3 of the staff report that correcting ambiguities is another reason for doing this. And I think those should be fairly straightforward. What I wonder about, though, is where you make the statement that no policy direction is proposed. Now, if anything that we do here is ultimately a recommendation to council, I don't know why we would be prohibited from engaging in policy discussion. So is it your position or intent from that comment that we won't, can't, shouldn't? What's your intent in saying there's no policy direction proposed? Because, by way of example, number 22, parking. Consider removing parking minimums. Well, if that doesn't drip with agenda and policy, I don't know what does. So there's no way we could tackle that if we were trying to not engage in policy direction. So could you clarify?
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, I will clarify. The intent of tonight's discussion is not to direct policy. It's to prioritize. The reason some of these are phrased the way they are, for example, item 22, is that the city currently has parking minimums. And the only way, if you have them, the only way you can, if you're going to consider something else, there is a natural direction because it exists. And so the only thing to do, if, you know, this was one of the things that we've received over the years and over conversations is, should it be appropriate to study that? And that's why it's worded as consider removing, because they are there now.
But that's policy.
I'm sorry, versus if there's something where there is not a definition and staff has identified a need for a definition, then at least it needs a definition. The question is not, then the question tonight is not what that definition is or should be, or, you know, or any direction thereof. When we bring that back, that's the appropriate time for that conversation. So we tried to stay as neutral as it was possible to do, but given the existence or non-existence of some of the items, there, yes, of course, is going to be some natural inclination of a direction.
We have parking minimum standards right now. To engage in a discussion that considers removing them, you're telling me that is not a policy direction?
No, to consider is not.
Okay, give me an example of a policy direction related to parking, so I know the difference between one that is and one that isn't policy direction.
If I can jump in, Director Tai, I think her point, Vice Chair Zick, is that tonight we're not discussing the merits of the policy. We're simply identifying which of these issues would be a priority. So I get your point. We're, kind of,
Okay, so many of these do, in fact, have policy, but we're not discussing policy tonight.
right,
We're simply discussing priority.
exactly.
Would you agree with that, Director Tai, that that's what you mean?
Correct, yes.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. The other thing I would suggest, and it follows on what the chair's questions were in terms of the kinds of things that impact you the most on a daily basis or impact development and in application review and processing. I can see those kinds of things maybe having a higher priority. One way you've categorized these is based on the level of effort. I think another way to look at these, not to change the way you've categorized them, but another way I think of looking at these, if the intent is to deal with inconsistency with law, ambiguity, clarification, which of these have the greatest need to deal with removing ambiguity? To me, those would seem to be higher priority, even if they were high level of work. If it's very ambiguous, if it's inconsistency with the law, I don't care how much work is involved, take it on now, would be my sense. Prioritizing based on work level is an important way to look at it if you're staff resource constrained. But to me, we should be working on the most important and impactful things first, whether they take a little bit of work or a lot of work. That's my sense. So I'm not prepared to put these in a different order because I don't have an understanding of which of these are dealing with inconsistency in the law or clarifying ambiguity. That's my initial take.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Dixon?
And to follow up on Vice Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up on Vice Chair's comments, I think maybe we come back with this with a technical code amendment category. I work with a lot of different cities, and as far as there's a lot of different amendments that are for exactly this sort of thing, a line break or a missing definition. For instance, with the bedroom, believe it or not, there's no definition in the California Building Code. So we'd have to look at, surrounding jurisdictions or whatever we want to do. And then, for stuff like, need definition of what constitutes rear yard coverage. If there's not something specific in Title 24, then I think staff would have to go back and look at sort of how the city's handled that in the past and things like that. And that could be a more detailed process. But I do think that stuff that's strictly a technical code amendment, line breaks, definitions, stuff like that. And definitions can be policy loaded, I get it. But if it's something where there's an established, like lot coverage, for instance. I've seen some codes that say where a definition is not in here, it's, whatever the standard, I can't remember the language, but so those would be my comments. I think that I do appreciate your direction to prioritize, but I think staff can prioritize to a certain degree. I think you have with the one, but at the same time, maybe we can break it up into sort of more policy-oriented, questions, and then just technical code amendments sort of thing. That would be my feedback.
Okay, Commissioner Martinez has been waiting very patiently to talk about this.
Questions and comments, or questions, public comment, then comments?
You can have questions and comments now.
Okay. I'll start with questions then. There are a few things in here that I believe do relate to housing element programs. And I'll point out, I think, two of them. The first is regarding density bonus law. Density bonus law is somewhere in our housing element.
7071.
Well, I'm talking about the housing element, not with, but within here, yeah, it's on our list and it's in the housing element. So just want to ask, is that covered in neighborhoods where we all belong, or would it be covered under this?
So I think it's important to note that the housing element has a number of programs in it. It's not just one. So the rezoning effort of neighborhoods where we all belong is one of those where we're bringing our zoning into consistency with our housing element as it is. But another one of the programs is to do updates that are consistent with state law, because state law is constantly changing. We had another rollout in July of a ton of laws that came out. And part of that for our housing element compliance is to stay on top of state law, but there are specific ones that we have to do. So in this particular case, yes, the housing element does talk about density bonus, but we have it on this list as well. And so we're not doing it as part of neighborhoods where we all belong, because that is specifically just a rezoning effort. So density bonus would be separate in order to be updated consistent with state law only. I also want to note that there's a caveat to that. State law prevails regardless of what our zoning code says. So we have to implement that, and we do implement that regardless of what our code says. So on our website, you'll see things where it says SB 9. Here is our policy document on SB 9 while we're updating our housing programs to address SB 9 to be consistent with code compliance. So it's not that we don't do those things. We absolutely do those things and comply with state law. We just want to make sure that when we have the time, yes, we do update our code. It's just every year, about 400 bills get introduced for housing law updates or land use updates, and approximately 100 get approved. And that's a lot of work to codify those. So we do them as best as we can as they apply to our zoning code.
And then I'll also jump in. So because we have different teams working on many different elements of the zoning code amendment, if we have one process that's trending faster and we can grab one amendment and make it part of that process, we'll do that. Staff will do that. If you know, it's because we're constantly tracking everything simultaneously. These, there's a few references to the density bonus. Those are identified areas in the zoning ordinance that we know have to be updated. But as Amber said, there are now probably half a dozen other provisions in that of the zoning ordinance that no longer tracks with state law because of recent updates. So these were just on here, but yeah, if there's an opportunity to move them and get them on a faster track, we will automatically do that.
Okay, so I just want to be clear about the neighborhoods where we all belong initiative, and that is just rezoning, and just rezoning, even if there are other housing element programs that aren't necessarily about rezoning. Is that correct?
No, it does include certain housing element programs. They're all in the housing element. For example, if I can name some, I think there are some residential development review processes. There's a review of the city's reasonable accommodation. There are, I think, some updates that we may have to look at for, I'm sorry, I'm blanking, SB2. Supportive housing, supportive housing and transitional housing, for example. So those are all listed in the housing element, so you won't see them here because they are on a program level. If you can envision, this list came from a bottom-up level. It came from a, every day we're working in the zoning ordinance, we're seeing ambiguities, we're seeing limitations, and we've identified them. And same with, we've received, there's a sprinkling of items here from planning commissioners as well that has arisen under similar circumstances.
Okay. I guess my point is, I think I'd be interested in seeing both the housing element programs that are just zoning code updates that aren't rezoning. Maybe that's like a level H. Like it's not like within our normal zoning code amendment process, the 2 to 3 times annually, but it's to apply the housing element process, just so we understand what's all going on. Because let's see, housing element program 2K is planning application fees. And I know we have fees as numbers 11 and 12 on here. So kind of overlaps, perhaps not a part of neighborhoods, but perhaps something that should be on this list. Another housing element program, parking standards for residential. That's perhaps related to number 22. So I think there's some, at least, overlap with housing element programs than just saying everything housing element was excluded from this list. With that, I'll go to, I'm just going to run down the list. In our definition section, because I did read the definition section of our zoning code, which was a thrilling read. And one of the things that's missing, that isn't actually on the list, a definition for parking. We don't have a parking definition. So, if you ask me, parking involves parking for motor vehicles and, of course, for bicycles. But I'm assuming that is not the view held by most people. So perhaps that's one that needs to be added to the list. Let's see. Number 11 is the major thoroughfare and bridge fee. I recently found out that that's the fee that goes towards the toll roads agency. So I think that's probably one that can be removed from this list. I think that they would not probably allow us to stop paying them their fee. Let's see. There are, I think, 14 things that are at level 3, if I counted correctly. And think of those level 3s, since they are the most complex, is what I want to try and prioritize. Like the level 1s, if it's easy enough to throw in a bedroom definition with any other zoning code amendment, you just throw that in. Any of the level 1s, if it's easy enough, just go for it whenever you can. Level 2s, more effort, but the level 3s, I think, are where we should try and prioritize what we're thinking and what would be most important. To that end, of course, from this list, I think my highest priority would be number 22, which itself affects 19, 20, 21, 24, 25 on this list. So with that, it affects two other possible amendments that are also level 3. So I think that one from this list would be the most complex and should be the highest priority, at least for me. We also received two written public comments, and both written public comments for tonight mentioned number 22 specifically. Okay. I wanted to ask if we've considered sending amendments or proposals to our various other city bodies. For example, I'm looking at 32 murals. That's quite obviously an Arts Commission thing. Number 43, bike storage facilities. It's kind of obviously an active transportation committee thing. Have we done that before? Would we consider doing that in the future so that those committees which are focused on that area, that have that expertise, can maybe even recommend to us what those possible amendments may be?
Yeah, so I'm happy to jump in on that. So if it's decided that that's a priority item, or whenever we come across that one, if it's appropriate to take to that body, then absolutely we could take it to that body in order to get their information, or their direction, if it's within their purview.
Okay. Would it be, I know it's zoning code, so obviously Development Services Department, but murals and the review process for murals, that murals might never come to us on the Planning Commission. It might solely be an Arts Commission thing. Would it be possible for them, of their own initiative, to recommend to us zoning code amendments regarding these possibilities?
So let me give you an example, actually, the one that we have currently right now, where we actually do get murals in planning. So as part of maybe a sign package that people are doing and moving forward, we would look at the mural as part of their overall signage for the building. It's not necessarily public art that they're looking to do, but we have to make sure that as part of it, you know, what definition does it fall under, right? Because now we're talking about First Amendment rights and making sure that we have signage and murals. So that's an example where we do touch murals in planning. But you're right. If it is a public mural, that would go to the Arts Commission for their review, if I understand the Arts Commission role properly, and I'll defer to Director Tai for that. But we want to make sure that if it's applicable to their review, that yes, they would review it.
Okay.
I'll just add on that the reason the mural item is on the list is that there is currently ambiguity as to the review body for when murals actually do come up. And simply because that ambiguity exists, that is on this list.
Okay, won't comment on policy. Okay. Top of this page 3, it says development inspections, and there's no number, there's no category, there's no issue. Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, it's a continuation of line 33. Sorry about that. I'm sure there's a setting that says I'm not allowed to break the row, and I didn't check it. So yes, currently there is a requirement that commercial condos, so non-residential common interest developments, receive inspections to ensure that their buildings are brought up to code. And since that's required as part of their construction permit anyway, their building permit, it seemed redundant, so it was added to this list.
Gotcha. Okay. 43, I mentioned already with wanting active transportation committee input because it relates to active transportation. And yes, can't comment on policy. Let's see, 51 standards. Says floor area ratio. It's not the only standard we have. We have, you know, setbacks, minimum lot sizes. We have building heights, all of which I don't know if we need to review, we need to study, but those are just also things that are out there, things that exist, that perhaps should be on this list, perhaps should not. Leave that up to you all. Okay. And I'll just note that number 88, special land use drive-through uses, pairs with number 30, which is the process for drive-throughs. So just to end on my prioritization, I said before, number 22, parking will be a big issue for me, highest priority for me. Of the rest of the threes, my two biggest ones are our standards, like I mentioned, the FAR, if we decide to look at any of our other standards, which is number 51, and number 30, which is the process for drive-throughs. And I do want to address the written public comment from Ms. Tanaka, who had some other ideas that aren't in here, specifically related around, I'm going to call it a possible, say, overlay regarding the pedestrian opportunity zones that are identified in our circulation element that pairs with the drive-through proposals that I just mentioned, that pairs with any number of our housing element programs and our rezoning effort through neighborhoods where we all belong. So I just wanted to mention that public comment. I did appreciate that. And thank you.
All right, thank you. Any commissioners on the East End want to chime in? Okay. All right, I'll open the public hearing and open public comments. If you'd like to speak on this item, the sole member in our chambers. All right, let me turn on your mic. All right, you have the floor.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Mark Vuksovich. I'm really in support of this item and making these changes and really cleaning up our zoning code. First and foremost, I want to appreciate Commissioner Zick on making the point that we should be in compliance with state law and also clarifying the questions that I had about the Brown Act comments, because I didn't understand that either. So I'm going to speak a little bit more towards policy, as you all can't, because I'm a public commenter. And so I strongly agree that number 22 is a massive priority, removing arbitrary parking minimums. And so I really want to just kind of describe why in a very specific Costa Mesa example. One of my favorite businesses in Costa Mesa almost didn't exist because of our parking requirement standards. Neat Coffee on 19th Street in Pomona almost didn't exist because what we said is you had to have, we said you had to have 11 parking spaces, and Neat only has 10 parking spaces. And you know, if you've been to Neat Coffee, it's not fun to park. It's really busy. It's one of the most loved small businesses in Costa Mesa that we almost prohibited. The only reason we didn't say that we did not prohibit Neat Coffee is because we said that if you have a bike parking spot, that could count towards your other parking spots. So they had 10 parking spots, they needed 11, they decided to put bike parking in, and that's the reason we have Neat Coffee. I fundamentally believe that we should let landowners and business owners decide what is the parking standard that they need for their business. If they can operate with 10 parking spots and a bike parking, and they believe that is a profitable business model for them, I'm sincerely in support of that. But these arbitrary standards, which by the way are not based in any sort of reality, if they were, I might be a little bit more supportive of it, that the state imposes, and I mean the state, I mean the city, the government imposes, I think are very problematic. And I think the council has made that a priority. I think the other written public comments have made that a priority as well. Some of the other comments I want to make as well is agree with Commissioner Martinez on tackling the drive-through issue. I think drive-throughs are bad for our city on a circulation level, but I also think they're bad on a property tax level. Typically historic downtowns like Newport Boulevard, even those businesses that like I kind of never go to, probably bring in more property tax revenue for the city than a drive-through that is burgeoning and thriving. I think those are the main comments. I have a number of others that I don't think I have time for. I'd say is I think setbacks are an issue. I think FAR is an issue. I think I'd love to allow hookah spots. It's a space that someone can be not drinking late at night, and I think to prohibit that in the entire city is a bad thing. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or phone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I am going to close public comment portion of the public hearing. Commissioners, any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, does anybody want to make a motion? I believe it's just a receive and file. Director Tai.
Yes, could I just recap the discussion in a very high level? I
Sure.
heard a couple of different expressions of next steps. I heard a desire to prioritize what was ambiguous and what was needed by state law. Then I heard maybe parsing out the list of amendments based on policy changes versus technical updates. And then I wrote down everything Commissioner Martinez indicated. In terms of next steps, I mean, that's not entirely, everyone moving in the right direction or in the same direction, sorry. There's no right direction. So is the next step, I mean, would the commission like staff at the next opportunity to bring back the list divided out, categorized in a slightly different way that provides you a little more specificity on prioritization. And then additionally, in the meantime, if we do find ourselves with the capacity to take on technical updates, we will continue to do that. Does that sound like a amenable approach?
I would agree with that. I think the kind of overarching theme for me is we don't know what we don't know.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot that comes through the door that we don't get to see, so we don't understand the staffing and resource limitations. But I think that sounds like a feasible next step.
Okay, thank you for that. And then to follow up, is there any consensus or on the commission as a whole to add any items that were discussed tonight? I heard certain things like development standards, reviewing all setbacks and height. I don't know if there's, that was a suggestion. And similarly, is there any consensus to delete any items that you saw?
Can I ask, if I remember correctly, objective design standards, are they part of the
Neighborhood.
rezoning?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
So that might be covered then.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Andrade?
Yeah, one of the ones that I would love to see priority on is number 6 on the subject on parks. And also number 12 for Measure Z, to help support the development of greater green space, especially on the west side of Costa Mesa. And then I don't know if this might be just too straightforward, but could we just prioritize, and this meant as much as possible, like to Commissioner Martinez's point, and the opportunity to group any of these if they're related, I think would definitely be helpful. And is it just too, am I oversimplifying by saying let's tackle the easy ones first, get through that? You got 23 level 1s, 52 level 2s, and 14 level 3s. So just, am I oversimplifying it? Let's get to the easy stuff first and then start tackling it one bite at a time.
We can certainly take that input under consideration as well. I think there was other input that said take the policy items, or at least focus on the policy level, the level 3s first. So I can see there's a little bit of mix. So maybe we can parse out, maybe we can further categorize, and then we'll come back and parse out what we might think is a reasonable prioritization and present that to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Yeah?
Commissioner Dixon?
And just very quickly, to follow up on that, I think there's some on here that are great topics of discussion, but they're answered somewhere, either by state law or by our practice. One thing I didn't see on here, and maybe I missed it, and I'm not sure if it's in the municipal code, but is there something in the municipal code right now that requires street trees as part of the development review process? If there's not, I'd like to add that as a topic.
There is a municipal code requirement for, I'm going to call it front yard, but it's the yard that's directly adjacent to the sidewalk, that requires private property to have trees along that frontage. And that's on the private property side, so there is currently a requirement.
Okay, and I guess maybe it's not appropriate with the municipal code, but we were offered and accepted a city-provided street tree in the public right-of-way. And that was a program that we had when I was on the planning commission earlier, where we were letting property owners know, if you want a tree, you can have one. We'll put it in for you. And I don't know if that's maybe not a municipal code thing. It may be more of a policy thing, but just something to think about as far as in Title 13, if there's anywhere in there for the public right of way as maybe some sort of part of the process.
Yeah, Title 13 is private property, but what, Commissioner Dixon, what you're talking about sounds, at least from my experience in other cities, sounds like a neighborhood improvement program, a beautification effort of sorts. And so I can maybe check history with City Engineer Yang on maybe what that program might have been way back when.
We used to have one, and it's probably not a municipal code thing, so we can take that up separately.
No, so Commissioner Dixon, with respect to that, from my knowledge, it's not really a municipal code thing, but it is a policy within Public Works. In that situation, it would involve our city arborist, because it is in the public right-of-way and the parkway. So in certain situations, we do meet with residents or business owners with respect to having kind of trees or any kind of foliage within the parkway.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know if there was somewhere where that was required or if that's not. And I think you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. A couple of things. I think my overarching sentiment is to give the greatest latitude to Director Tai to determine what staff needs to work on with regard to clarifying ambiguities and confusing or missing language in the code. If we're talking about trying to prioritize wish lists for her to work on, to me, that's a different kind of a conversation. But the way the staff report is written, that the intent of this is to deal with ambiguities and clarifications and incorporating zoning administrator decisions. To me, she's got the wherewithal to decide what's most important, what she can work in with her current staffing. If there's another discussion that says, hey, but we have a real interest in directing or driving certain policy changes, to me, that's all well and good, and that's fine. But to me, that's a separate discussion. And with that, I wanted to just comment on a couple of things, and not so much a debate, but I felt I wanted to respond. I would be interested in learning more about the property tax impact or the adverse property tax impact that drive-throughs represent. This is the first time I have heard that the objection to drive-throughs is related to property tax. That isn't what one of the public commenters wrote about. You know, that their rationale was more anti-car. But if there's a property tax adverse impact, I'd certainly be interested in that. I don't know if it would sway me against drive-throughs, but I certainly would want to understand that issue. I've also heard it referred to many times that our minimum parking standards are arbitrary. You know, they're not arbitrary. They're based on a long history of experience. Is it arbitrary to say that an office building has to have 4 per thousand, and we don't even know what kind of business is going to be in that office building? You might say, yeah, that's arbitrary. But it's not arbitrary when over time it has been proven that office buildings that have less than 4 per thousand have parking issues. And you might say, well, this developer that's building one knows who he's building it for. They only need 3 or 3.5 per thousand. Okay, that's great. And in 20 years, that business is sold. The building is sold. Somebody new comes into that office building. Their parking demand isn't 3 or 3.5 anymore. Too late. It's not arbitrary. It's empirical. I do agree with a philosophy that says a business owner should be able to decide how much parking he needs to run his business. I agree 100% with that philosophy. Here's where it breaks down. When that business owner is wrong and more people are coming to that business than he has provided parking for, if the people simply went back home because they couldn't find parking, great, that theory works. If instead they park in adjacent business parking lots or residential neighborhoods, that's where it breaks down. Because now the business owner has made a decision to underpark his development, and the impacts are felt by people around him. So he doesn't know how much parking he needs to operate his business. He only knows how much he was willing to provide. We have residents that come out of the woodwork concerned about parking in their neighborhoods, and they're not making it up. We have businesses that come and talk about concerns about underparked developments that are being proposed adjacent to them. They're not just making it up. If it really was truly the case that a business owner provided parking for his business and there was no alternative for anybody to park around it, in that idyllic world, I'm 100% in agreement. We don't live there.
Final comments, Commissioner Martinez.
Mr. Chairman, apparently we are engaging in a policy discussion. So I do wish to respond first to the comments about parking. So I want to first say that states like Washington, Montana, North Carolina have passed legislation regarding parking minimums to actually eliminate them because they have decided that they are arbitrary, not needed. I also was a student member of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which puts out the parking minimum recommendations. And I have seen graphs of these parking minimum recommendations where the statistical significance of these recommendations are practically zero. I've also seen graphs regarding parking minimum recommendations that are completely the wrong way, where a bigger development actually requires less parking than smaller developments. So I fully agree with the public commenter that these decisions are as pseudoscience as I believe would be the opinion of the late Donald Shoup, a professor from the University of California at Los Angeles. Final comment regarding prioritization that I think would be interesting is how some of these items might affect our municipal budget. So things like setbacks, places that are closer together may pay the city more in property taxes per acre, something like that. I don't know if that's something that is easily available. Probably not with many of these, but maybe another factor to consider with some of these. Thank you.
All right, I foresee a very robust policy discussion in our near future. With that, do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Dixon.
I move that we receive and file the staff presentation
Okay.
on the zoning code amendments.
Second by Vice Chair Zick. You want any last words about this?
No.
Okay. All right, let's call for the question.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right. That takes us to departmental reports. Mr. Yang, anything from Public Services?
No reports from Public Works Department. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And Ms. Tai, anything from Development Services?
Yes, some brief updates. At the City Council meeting last Tuesday on August 4th, City Council approved the residential development proposal at 3150 Bear Street with some modifications, which included removal of the pedestrian gate from the project site onto Olympic Avenue, as well as adding some pedestrian safety and prioritization designs into the design of the signal, the new signal on Bear Street into the project site, and also some requests for the city to continue to monitor parking issues in the adjacent neighborhoods. That rezoning portion of that project will return to City Council for a second reading on September 2nd. And then also, thank you to everybody in the public for attending the Neighborhoods Where We All Belong workshop. We've received some great feedback and some constructive criticism, and we'll take all of that to heart. I do know that Commissioner Martinez mentioned some upcoming events, but I wanted to state a correction, not related to Neighborhoods Where We All Belong, but for the Fair Housing Workshop scheduled for August 14th, that has been rescheduled to October 9th. The reason for that is that the fair is still going on August 14th, and that was a limiting factor in attendance and accessibility. So other than that, please pay attention to all of the social media announcements on the Neighborhoods Where We All Belong continuing workshops, and thank you for the opportunity, Chair.
All right, thank you. And lastly, Mr. Preziosi, anything from the city attorney?
No updates this evening.
Okay, wonderful. We are adjourned.